I knew before she spoke, before she even saw me, because another man's cologne was already living in my bedroom. When she said don't touch me, it didn't sound like a boundary. It sounded like a verdict. I came home early with grocery bags cutting into my fingers and heat still clinging to my jacket from the drive. I timed it right. Dinner would be on the table before she walked in, like a reset button I could press without talking. I carried the food upstairs, past the hallway mirror, saw myself in it. Shoulders squared, jaw set, eyes tired but steady. The kind of face that keeps things running. The bedroom door was half open. Claire was by the dresser, slipping out of a blazer like she'd been wearing it too long. The light caught her hair, the curve of her neck. And then it hit me. Not perfume, not shampoo. A woody, masculine cologne. Clean and expensive. Clinging to her skin like a fingerprint you couldn't wipe off fast enough. It didn't belong in our house. It didn't belong to my wife. My body reacted before my mind gave it a name. Chest tight, stomach cold. A quiet alertness like a sensor tripping. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice normal. "I made dinner." She froze for a fraction of a second, then turned fast, eyes narrowing like I'd walked in on her privacy instead of my own marriage. "You're home early," she said. "Yeah." I shifted the bags in my hand. "Thought we could eat together." She stepped closer, and the scent got stronger. Not subtle, not accidental. I tried to move past her toward the closet, just to put the bags down, just to keep my hands busy. She snapped back like I'd threatened her. "Don't." I stopped. Her face wasn't guilty. It was irritating. Like I'd interrupted something she'd already decided mattered more than me. "Don't touch me," she said again, colder this time. No softness, no apology, no explanation offered, because she wasn't negotiating. She was enforcing distance. The words landed clean and heavy. Harder than any confession, because confessions still assume you care what the other person thinks. This was worse. This was her acting like my presence was an inconvenience. I looked at her hands. No trembling, no panic, just impatience. "Okay," I said. That was it. One syllable. Not because I didn't have questions. Because I suddenly understood the shape of the truth. She wasn't hiding something out of fear. She was hiding it because she'd already left. Emotionally, privately, decisively, and the rest was just logistics. I set the grocery bags on the floor gently, like the sound might break something I was trying not to feel. Claire watched me like I might argue, like she wanted a fight she could use later. I didn't give it to her. I walked out, closed the bedroom door behind me without slamming it, and went downstairs alone. The house stayed quiet. The oven clock blinked the time like it was neutral. In the kitchen, I stared at the table I'd set for two. Control, I realized, wasn't loud. Control was leaving the room before you gave away anything you couldn't get back. Portland, 5 years earlier. It was one of those tech startup conferences where everybody pretends they're casual while trying to look inevitable. Hoodies with venture logos. Bad coffee. People pitching the future in 10-minute conversations like it was normal. I was there because I'd been invited to speak on supply chain optimization, systems, bottlenecks, boring stuff that keeps factories alive. My slides were clean. My delivery was accurate. I wasn't a performer. I was a builder. After my talk, I stepped off the stage and started packing up my laptop. That's when I heard a voice behind me. "You know your material," she said, "but you talk like you're apologizing for it." I turned. Claire Bennett. Black dress, sharp eyes, the kind of posture that makes people move without realizing they're moving. She didn't smile to be polite. She smiled like she was already running the room in her head. Most people at conferences want something. Claire didn't look like she wanted anything. She looked like she was choosing. "I'm not apologizing," I said. She replied, like she didn't believe me. "You're hiding. There's a difference." That annoyed me, which is how I knew it mattered. We talked for 20 minutes by the side of the stage while other speakers floated past us. She asked questions that weren't just smart, they were aggressive. Marketing angles, user psychology, positioning, how you make a product feel necessary instead of merely functional. I could feel my brain doing what it always does. Mapping, testing, assessing. And I could feel something else too. Something I didn't like admitting I needed. Energy. Claire had it in the way she moved, the way she cut through soft language. Being around her made my own quiet nature feel incomplete. Not wrong, just unfinished. You need someone who pulls you out, she said. And it wasn't flirtation. It was a diagnosis. I shrugged. Or someone who lets me work. She tilted her head. You can work anywhere. Most men like you just choose to disappear inside it. That should have been a red flag. A stranger dissecting me like a case study. But it hit a nerve so clean I couldn't ignore it. We got dinner that night. Not planned. Just inevitable. Then another dinner. Then weekends that didn't feel like dating. They felt like alignment. Like she was snapping pieces into place and calling it fate. She met my friends. I met her. The pattern was always the same. My friends were cautious. They liked Claire, but they didn't trust the speed. You barely know her, my buddy Aaron said one night, half joking, half not. I know enough, I answered. That was the first lie I told myself. Because the truth was simpler. Claire's certainty made my life feel clean. Solved. Like I could stop questioning every decision because she made decisions like breathing. Within months, she was staying over more than she wasn't. Her stuff appeared in my apartment with quiet confidence. Like it had rights there. One morning, she stood in my kitchen making coffee. Hair up, sleeves rolled, and said, "Why are we doing this the slow way?" I knew what she meant. I also knew I should slow it down. Ask harder questions. Pay attention to how she treated people when she didn't need them. See how she handled disagreement. But I liked the way she looked at me, like I was worth shaping. So I proposed. Not with a big speech. Not with a ring flashed under a spotlight. Just an evening on my couch, her legs over mine. A quiet moment that felt private and permanent. "Marry me," I said. She didn't hesitate. Yes, that was the problem. Felt like confirmation, not commitment. Like we were signing paperwork on an idea that had already been approved. We got married fast. Courthouse, clean suits, a dinner afterward that turned into a party because Claire knew how to make people show up. She was magnetic in a way I wasn't, and I told myself that meant we balanced each other. Introvert and extrovert. Builder and closer. Fire and steel. That's the story I repeated when anyone raised an eyebrow. And I believed it because believing it was easier than admitting the obvious. I didn't marry her because I knew her. I married her because she made me feel like I didn't have to be alone inside my own head anymore. And for a while, that felt like love. After the wedding, it was like Claire needed our life to become a story fast. Not a slow, honest build. A headline. I had the technical foundation already, software that made supply chains behave. Forecasting, routing, inventory logic. The kind of work that saves companies money without anyone clapping for it. I'd been writing it at night, refining it the way I refine everything. Quietly, obsessively, until it worked. Claire saw it and didn't ask if it could sell. She asked how big we wanted to get. Apex Solutions, she said one night, like naming it made it real. Not some freelance side thing. A company. We cleared the garage. Folding table. 2 cheap monitors. A whiteboard that never stayed clean. I handled the product. She handled the story, branding, pitch decks, the kind of language that makes executives nod before they even understand what they're buying. Our first client was a local manufacturer that kept bleeding money through bad forecasting. I remember the way the owner looked at my demo, skeptical at first, then quiet, then hungry. When the numbers changed his face, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. We fixed his bottlenecks. Lead times dropped. Inventory stabilized. He referred us to another company, then another. Claire set meetings like traps. She'd walk into a room, shake hands, and somehow everyone left believing the decision was already made. I built. She sold. The garage got too small. We rented a little office with thin walls and bad parking. Then we hired a junior dev. Then a second. The work multiplied, and so did the money. We moved out of the modest bungalow because Claire called it temporary, the way people call discomfort a phase. We ended up in the West Hills, in a house with space we didn't need but could now afford. Glass, views, Clean lines. It was photographed well. Claire loved that part. The image. She started buying nicer things, upgrading the life around us the way she upgraded our marketing materials. She wasn't reckless. She was intentional, like she was building proof that we'd made it. I didn't fight her on it because, to me, it was just surface. Wallpaper over a foundation I trusted. The foundation was the company. The company was us. That's what I told myself. And the faster we grew, the more I stopped looking at my marriage like something that needed maintenance. I treated it like infrastructure, important, assumed, quietly there. I'd come home late and she'd be on her phone, smiling at something she didn't share. I'd catch her leaving early, dressed sharp, moving like she had somewhere better to be. We'd talk in bullet points, deadlines, hires, flights, client dinners. Success became a blindfold because it gave me a reason to ignore what I couldn't measure. Revenue was up. Client retention was strong. Product performance improved every quarter. So I kept building. And I didn't notice, at least not honestly, that day to day, the air between us was changing. Not with explosions, with absence. It didn't happen overnight. There was no single moment where Claire turned into someone else. It was a slow drift, like a boat moving off its anchor while you're busy staring at the horizon. At first it looked like ambition. More late nights, more quick client dinners that ran long. More travel, especially once Apex started chasing bigger contracts outside Portland. She'd come back with stories that were mostly names and numbers, delivered fast, like she was reading off a dashboard. And she stopped telling me things that mattered. Small things first. Who she'd met. Which exec was pushing back. What direction a negotiation was leaning. Not because I demanded to know, because we were partners. We were supposed to be running the same race. When I asked, she'd smile like I was cute. You'd be bored, she'd say. I wasn't bored. I was excluded. But I didn't call it that. I didn't want to be the guy who needed reassurance. I'd built my whole identity around being stable, low drama, dependable, the man who doesn't panic. So I made it logical. She's under pressure. She's managing relationships. She's doing the part I'm not built for. At home, conversations got shorter. Not arguments, just less. Like we were both living in the same space but communicating through status updates. How was your day? Busy. Trip next week. Okay. Then the phone started showing up everywhere. Face down on the counter. The screen turned away when I walked into the room. Bathroom breaks that lasted too long. Late night scrolling in bed while I stared at the ceiling pretending not to notice the glow. I noticed. Of course I noticed. But I didn't want to be suspicious. Suspicion felt like weakness to me. Like insecurity. Like something men do when they don't have their lives together. I had my life together. So I told myself the clean story. Trusting your wife is normal. Not checking up on her is decent. Healthy couples don't interrogate each other. The truth was less noble. I didn't ask harder questions because I didn't want the answers to demand action. Work became my hiding place. Product development is a clean addiction. Hours disappear, problems have solutions, progress is measurable. I could stay late, come home tired, and call it responsibility. Meanwhile, Claire built her own world inside Apex. Meetings I wasn't invited to, conversations that happened without me, decisions I found out about after they were made. When I pushed back once, just once, she looked at me like I'd disappointed her. Do you trust me or not? She asked. It was a trap disguised as a virtue test. If I said no, I was the controlling husband. If I said yes, I had to swallow whatever came next. So I said yes, and she nodded, satisfied, like she'd just filed the paperwork on my compliance. That's the thing about subtle shifts. They don't feel like betrayal while they're happening. They feel like adulthood, like momentum, like you're being mature by not making problems out of stress. Until one day you realize the stress isn't the problem. It's the cover story. Westridge Manufacturing came in like a storm front. They weren't our biggest client yet, but they were the door to something bigger. Multi-site operations, long-term licensing, a contract that would anchor Apex in a new tier. The kind of deal that changes how people look at you at conferences. The kind of deal Claire talked about with a shine in her eyes I hadn't seen in months. They have a new COO, she told me. He's sharp. This could move fast. The first meeting was downtown in a glass tower with a lobby that smelled like money and lemon cleaner. I wore my usual uniform, dark blazer, no nonsense. Claire wore something tailored and confident, the kind of outfit that made people assume she was already in charge. Then Ethan Caldwell walked in. Mid-30s, maybe, clean haircut, perfect teeth. A suit that didn't scream expensive because it didn't need to. He shook my hand with just enough pressure to test me and smiled like we were already friends. "Daniel," he said, using my name like it belonged in his mouth. "I've heard good things." I watched him the way I watch a system under load, quiet, alert, looking for where it flexes. Ethan didn't talk fast. He talked smoothly. He asked the right questions, but he wasn't really focused on the answers. He was focused on people, how they reacted, where their eyes went, who wanted approval. And Claire lit up. Not in a dramatic way. In a subtle, dangerous one. Her laugh came quicker. Her posture leaned in a little. Her smile sharpened around the edges. Like she enjoyed the friction. Ethan noticed. Of course he did. While I walked through our platform, lead times, inventory optimization, predictive ordering, Ethan watched Claire more than the screen. When she spoke, he held eye contact a half-second longer than necessary. When I answered, he nodded politely and shifted back to her like she was the real decision. Maybe she was. At one point he said, "You two are a strong team," and looked at Claire when he said it, not me. She gave him that brighter smile, small, controlled, private. The meeting ended with handshakes and promises. "Let's keep momentum," Ethan said. "Claire, I'd love to grab time this week and talk through rollout strategy." She didn't even glance at me before answering. "Absolutely," she said. "I'll send options." On the drive back, I kept my voice flat. "He seems confident." Claire laughed like I'd said something obvious. "That's why he's a COO." "Yeah," I said. "That's why." I didn't say what I really meant. He's confident the way men are when they're used to winning in rooms full of married women. I felt it in my gut. An irrational signal, the kind engineers hate because it won't fit in a spreadsheet. But it was there, steady and clear. And I pushed it down anyway. Because if I admitted the alternative, if I admitted my wife liked the attention of a man like that, I'd have to admit something worse. That my marriage might already be compromised. And I wasn't ready to look straight at that yet. I went all in on the dinner like a fool with standards. Truffle pasta, fresh Parmesan, good olive oil, the nice plates we only used when we had guests, because part of me still believed marriage deserved ceremony even when nobody was watching. I set the table for two, lit a candle that felt stupid as soon as I lit it, poured water into glasses like routine could still anchor us. She texted at 7:14. "Running late. The meeting ran over. Don't wait up." I stared at it, thumb hovering, and answered with something neutral. "Okay, food's here when you're home." At 8:22, another text. "Almost done. Be home soon." At 9:11, she still wasn't home. By 9:40, the pasta had cooled into something that looked like defeat. I turned the oven off and sat at the table anyway, because sitting there felt better than pacing like a man who'd lost authority in his own house. At 10:06, the front door opened. I didn't rush out. I didn't call her name. I listened. Heels on hardwood, the soft click of keys, a pause like she was calibrating herself before stepping into view. Then she came into the kitchen, hair slightly off like it had been handled, lipstick smudged, not from eating, top buttons on her blouse misaligned, the fabric tugged at an angle that didn't happen from sitting in a conference room. Her eyes were bright in the wrong way, too alert, too flushed, like adrenaline hadn't had time to fade. And underneath it all, that cologne again. Woody, clean, expensive, the exact kind of scent a man chooses when he wants to be remembered after he leaves. She stopped when she saw the table. Candle, plates, food waiting like a question. Her expression tightened, not with guilt, annoyance, like my effort was an accusation. "I told you not to wait up," she said. "I didn't," I replied. "I cooked." She dropped her bag on the chair too hard. "Daniel, I'm exhausted." "I made your favorite," I said, still calm. still stupidly hoping the tone could save meaning. Truffle. Like you like it. She looked at the food like it was a problem. I'm not hungry. Then she moved past me toward the sink, close enough that the scent slammed into me again. I didn't grab her. I didn't corner her. I just reached out lightly like a husband does when he still thinks touch is allowed. Her whole body flinched. Don't, she snapped. I froze. She turned, eyes cold, and said it again, slower, sharper. Don't touch me. There it was. Not a boundary. Not in a mood. A message. I didn't argue. I didn't ask who she was with. I didn't say the cologne out loud, because saying it would make it a confrontation, and I could already see how she'd play it, deny, deflect, accuse me of paranoia, make me the problem for noticing the obvious. Instead, I looked at her, really looked, and watched the last thread of hope in me go slack. Okay, I said. Claire blinked like she expected more, like she expected anger she could twist, tears she could dismiss, a fight she could use as proof that I was unstable. I gave her nothing. I picked up my plate, dumped the cold pasta into the trash, and rinsed it off with slow, controlled movements. Not dramatic, just done. She watched from the doorway, arms crossed. You're being weird. No, I said quietly. I'm being observant. She rolled her eyes like I was inconvenient. Then she walked upstairs without another word. I didn't follow. I took my pillow to the sofa and lay down fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. Not spiraling. Not collapsing. Thinking. I replayed the inputs like data. Timestamps, body language, scent, misaligned buttons, her irritation, the flinch, the command. The timeline didn't fit a meeting. It fit something else perfectly. And in that clarity, something in me shifted. Clean pivot. Saving the marriage was no longer the goal. Protecting what was mine was. By morning, Claire moved through the house like nothing happened. Coffee. Phone. A quick kiss near my cheek that didn't land. She wore competence like armor and talked about her day in clean, empty sentences. I've got back-to-back meetings, she said, slipping on heels. Westridge stuff. Got it, I replied. No edge, no suspicion, just the version of me she expected. Steady, busy, useful. She left at 8:03. At 8:05, I sat at my desk and opened the company calendar. I didn't do it like a jealous husband. I did it like an owner auditing a system that's been quietly compromised. Her schedule had entries labeled the way professionals label lies. Client sync, vendor call, ops review. Neat, generic, untraceable. I cross-checked them with conference room bookings. Some matched, some didn't. Then I pulled expense statements. Dinner charges that didn't fit the pattern. High-end places on nights she claimed she grabbed something quick. Two-person tasting menus. Valet parking. Hotels billed to client travel in weeks when no travel had been mentioned at all. I opened email threads with Westridge. They read clean at first, polite greetings, project timelines, deliverables. But then you notice what an engineer notices. Unnecessary warmth in the margins. Jokes that didn't serve the work. A familiarity that didn't belong between a COO and a vendor lead. I checked phone records last. Long calls after midnight. Not to Westridge's main line. Not to any office number. To Ethan Caldwell's personal cell. Repeated. Consistent. The kind of frequency that doesn't happen by accident or work emergencies. The calm that settled over me wasn't numbness. It was clarity. Because proof removes doubt. And doubt is what keeps a man pacing in circles. Imagining, hoping, bargaining with himself. I took screenshots. Exported files. Saved everything to an encrypted drive and a private cloud folder under a name that meant nothing. Then I closed the laptop and made my coffee. When Claire came home later, I'd be the same man on the outside. But inside, the situation had changed. Now I wasn't guessing. I was acting on reality. I didn't confront Claire. Confrontation is emotional. Emotion is a leak. I booked an appointment with Miles Harrington instead. Corporate attorney. Discreet. The kind of man who doesn't flinch at ugly facts as long as they're handled clean. His office sat in a quiet building where the carpets were thick and the receptionist didn't ask personal questions. Miles shook my hand, looked at my face for about 2 seconds, and said, "Tell me what you want to protect." "My work," I answered, "and my ability to keep building it." He didn't ask if my wife was cheating. He didn't need the drama. He asked about contracts, equity, IP assignments, operating agreements, where control lived and where it should have lived. I told him the truth that mattered. The core platform was mine. I wrote it. I architected it. I maintained it. Apex ran on my decisions the way a body runs on a spine. Miles nodded once. Then we built a moat. We moved slowly on purpose. Months, not days. Everything is legal. Everything is documented. Nothing that looked like a sudden shift. A new entity to hold the software rights and licensing. Cleanly formed, cleanly explained as risk management. Updated agreements that clarified authorship and access. Technical controls on repositories and deployment. Standard security practices, nothing dramatic. We tightened the cap table, too. A minority investor who'd been hanging around since the early garage days got bought out at a fair number. My money, my terms. The kind of move nobody questions when business is growing. Apex stayed the brand. The clients stayed. Claire's ownership stayed real on paper. But value is a design choice. We separated operations into arms, services, marketing, customer success, things Claire could touch. And the core engine, what actually made the company worth anything, became licensed, controlled, and authored by me. The whole time at home, I wore the husband mask. I asked about her day. I listened like nothing had changed. I let her think the ground was stable. Because the point wasn't to make noise. The point was to make sure that when the floor finally dropped, I'd be the one standing on something solid. Claire picked a Tuesday for the talk, like she was scheduling a performance review. She came into my office at home, our Apex war room, with a calm face and a rehearsed tone. Holding 2 coffees like that made it civilized. "We need to have a mature conversation," she said, setting 1 cup down in front of me. "About us. About the company." I didn't touch the coffee. I watched her sit across from me, legs crossed, posture perfect. She looked confident in that curated way she'd learned in boardrooms. Controlled, sympathetic, already certain of the outcome. "I think we can do this clean," she continued. "No drama. 50-50. We built it together." That word, together, almost made me smile. She kept going, laying out a plan like she was doing me a favor. Separate houses, separate schedules, a respectful public story. She said we didn't need lawyers. She said she didn't want things to get ugly. She never mentioned Ethan. Of course she didn't. She wanted the benefits of honesty without the cost. When she finished, she leaned back slightly, like a judge waiting for the other side to accept the deal. I nodded once, slow. "Okay." Her shoulders loosened. She took that as surrender. I reached into the drawer and pulled out a plain folder. No branding, no drama. Just paper. "Before we talk numbers," I said, "you should understand what you're actually splitting." I slid it across the desk. She opened it with an expression that stayed confident for about 3 seconds. Then her eyes started moving faster. She flipped a page. Then another. Her mouth tightened. A small crease formed between her brows like her face was trying to reject what it was reading. "What is this?" she asked, voice still controlled but thinner now. "It's the current structure," I said. "Apex operations, licensing, IP holding, control." She looked up at me, and for the first time in a long time, I saw uncertainty in her eyes. "You changed this without telling me?" "I updated it," I replied. "Legally, properly. It was prudent." Her fingers pressed hard into the paper. "I'm a co-founder. You are." I agreed. "You have equity. You always will." She latched onto that, relief trying to rise. Then 50-50 stands. I let the silence stretch, just enough for the reality to catch up to her. "Equity isn't the same as control," I said. "And paper value isn't the same as actual value." She scanned again, and it hit her, slowly, brutally. The core platform wasn't sitting inside the same bucket anymore. It was licensed, authored, controlled. The spine of Apex was in my hands, cleanly and legally, the way it should have been from the start. Her voice sharpened. So what? This is some kind of threat? No, I said. It's a fact. And facts are what courts care about. Her jaw worked. I can fight this. You can, I said, still calm. And you'll spend money doing it. You'll pull our clients into it. You'll pull Westridge into it. You'll pull your personal life into a public record. That last part landed. Her eyes flicked away for a half-second, like she'd pictured exactly what might surface if things got messy. I didn't need to say Ethan's name. The air said it for me. I kept my voice level. I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to end this clean. Claire swallowed. So what do you want? I'm offering a buyout path, I said. Fair numbers. Quiet exit. You keep your reputation. You keep your future. And we don't do a scorched earth version of our lives. She stared at me, and I could see the calculation behind her eyes. The same calculation that once made her look like certainty. Now it looked like survival. This is ruthless, she said, almost a whisper. It's controlled, I corrected. She pushed the folder back toward me like it burned. I need time. Take it, I said. But not long. She stood up, coffee untouched, and walked out without the clean confidence she came in with. Her heels sounded different on the floor. Faster, less sure. That night, she called. Her voice was quieter, less sharp. I'll do the buyout. Good, I said. A pause. Then, can we meet? One last time. For closure. Closure. The word people use when they want comfort without accountability. I didn't refuse. I didn't agree on her terms either. Yes, I said. We can meet. Thank you, she breathed, like I'd given her something. I stared at the wall while I spoke my last line to her as her husband. On my terms, I said, because this ends clean, not soft.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.